921 aftershocks. 921. And they are still coming. This is not a normal earthquake sequence, guys. This is something else entirely. And I have to tell you, the M7.4 that just struck the Molucca Sea in Indonesia, that's not the real story. The real story is what is hiding underneath it, what this earthquake is actually sitting on top of. And further in this video, I will explain exactly why this region scares seismologists more than almost anywhere else on Earth. Because this is not just Indonesia being Indonesia, this is the only place on the entire planet where something like this is happening. The only one. Let that sink in for a second. So let's get right into what happened. On April 2nd, 2026, at 6:48 in the morning local time, a magnitude 7.4 earthquake struck the Molucca Sea. The epicenter was located 126 kilometers, that's 78 miles, west-northwest of Ternate, a city of over 200,000 people in North Maluku province. The depth, 35 kilometers, that's 22 miles. Shallow, very shallow. Shallow earthquakes are the ones that hit hardest, guys. The energy doesn't get time to scatter, it punches straight up. Strong shaking lasting 10 to 20 seconds was reported across Bitung in North Sulawesi and in Ternate in North Maluku, 10 to 20 seconds. You try holding on to something for 20 seconds while the ground underneath you is moving. Residents described it as the most powerful tremor they had experienced in at least 6 years. And the reaction was immediate. One resident, Martin Mandagi, said, "We had just woken up and suddenly the earthquake hit. We all ran out of the house. The shaking was very strong." That is raw panic right there. And it wasn't just one city. The USGS pager system estimates around 209,000 people felt strong shaking. About 2.1 million felt moderate shaking, and roughly 1.9 million felt light shaking. 4 million people shaken in the middle of the morning with a tsunami warning on top. And further in this video, I want to tell you about the geology underneath this entire situation, because what is happening down there is unlike anything else on the planet. 1 person was killed, 4 were injured, and over 450 structures were damaged or destroyed. The majority of them on the Batang Dua Islands, closest to the rupture zone. A 70-year-old woman in Manado, killed by falling debris when a building collapsed. She woke up that morning probably like any other morning, and it was just her and the earthquake. I have to say that hits different when you think about it that way. On the Batang Dua Islands, near the rupture area, 1,966 people were displaced. 104 homes collapsed outright. 85 were moderately damaged, and another 79 were slightly damaged. These are not rich islands. These are not people with backup homes to go to. This is everything they have. And now, a Siloam hospital was seriously damaged. 5 government buildings and a hotel were also affected in Manado alone. When a hospital gets hit, guys, that is a problem beyond the earthquake. Because now the people who are injured, the people who are afraid, the people who are going into shock, where do they go? Indonesia's meteorological agency, BMKG, reported tsunami waves in West Halmahera at 0.3 meters. That's about a foot. And in Bitung at 0.2 meters. The highest recorded wave was 0.65 meters. That's about 2.1 feet. At Kema in Sulawesi. Now that sounds small, but a tsunami is not a normal wave. It doesn't crash and recede. It pushes, and it keeps pushing. Strong current, debris, pollutants. A tsunami has an extremely long wavelength. It behaves more like a rapid rise in sea level, and the flooding can reach far inland, carrying large amounts of debris with powerful currents. And these are coastal villages, flat coastlines. That's why the warning went all the way to the Philippines and Malaysia. Guys, before we get into the part of this video that I think will genuinely shock you, can you do me a quick favor? Give this video an early like and a hype. Share it with someone who needs to know what is going on in this region. Leave me a comment. It doesn't cost you anything, but it helps me keep this channel running so I can stay on the pulse for you. All right, now let's talk about what is really going on down there. So here is where it gets extraordinary, and I mean that. The Molucca Sea is, scientifically speaking, one of the strangest and most dangerous places on Earth. The Molucca Sea is underlain by an oceanic slab that is subducting in 2 directions simultaneously. One side sinking westward beneath Sulawesi, the other sinking eastward beneath Halmahera. 2 directions at the same time. This is called double subduction. And here is the key thing you need to understand. This is the only global example of an active arc-arc collision, consuming an oceanic basin via subduction in two directions. The Molucca Sea Plate is being squeezed by the Halmahera Plate and the Sangihe Plate simultaneously. Scientists call this the Molucca Sea Collision Zone, the only one, on the entire planet. There is no other place on Earth where this is happening. So imagine a piece of Earth's crust being crushed from the left and crushed from the right at the same time. What do you think happens to the stress? It doesn't just build, it multiplies. According to the USGS, the quake occurred near the interface between the subducted Halmahera slab and the overlying Sunda Plate. And fault mechanism solutions indicate reverse faulting, a moderately dipping structure consistent with the regional pattern of earthquakes here. Now, reverse faulting, let me explain why that word matters. When a fault slips in reverse, one side is pushed up over the other. That is a vertical movement, and vertical movement of the seafloor, that is exactly what generates tsunamis. The 2026 North Maluku earthquake generated a small tsunami through precisely this vertical uplift of the seafloor, caused by reverse thrust faulting during the main shock. So the tsunami was not a surprise. It was exactly what the geology predicted. The Sunda and Philippine sea plates are converging in this region at approximately 100 millimeters. That's about 4 inches per year. 4 inches per year doesn't sound like much, but when two plates have been doing this for 15 million years, the stress accumulated in that system is almost beyond comprehension. About 2.6 million years ago, the entire oceanic crust of the Molucca Sea was swallowed up by subduction. But it didn't disappear. It's still down there, underneath the overriding plates. And now, instead of subduction, the plates on either side have started colliding with each other. So we have a buried slab, invisible on the surface. No crack you can see, no mountain you can point to, just a compressed, stressed, ancient slab of oceanic crust buried deep below the Molucca Sea. Still pushing, still causing earthquakes, still capable of so much worse. And this is not new behavior, guys. I did a little research. According to the USGS, this tectonic region has been the source of 115 earthquakes, exceeding magnitude 6.0 since 1908. That includes 18 earthquakes exceeding magnitude 7.0, 115 major earthquakes, in roughly 100 years. That is more than one significant quake per year from this single zone. The largest events ever to strike this zone were two magnitude 7.7 earthquakes, one in 1932, one in 1968, 7.7. That is significantly more powerful than what just happened, and it has happened here before, twice. Over the past 50 years, 9 earthquakes exceeding magnitude 7 have struck within 250 kilometers of this week's epicenter. 9. In 50 years. That's almost one per decade within this very zone. This is not random, this is a pattern. A deeply documented, scientifically understood pattern of a system that releases stress again and again. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Each time it releases, it is not necessarily releasing all the stress. It's releasing some of the stress. The rest stays locked, building up, waiting. Now let's talk about those 921 aftershocks, because that number stopped me in my tracks. The earthquake was followed by at least 921 aftershocks, with the largest having a magnitude of 6.2. 921 aftershocks. The largest was a 6.2. Let me put that in perspective. A magnitude 6.2 earthquake on its own is significant enough to cause damage, significant enough to generate a tsunami warning in some contexts. And here it was an aftershock, just one of 921. The strongest aftershock struck just a few hours after the main event. So imagine you have survived the main 7.4 shock. Your home has cracks in the walls. Your family is outside. You're shaking. And 5 hours later, the ground moves again. 6.2. Then another aftershock. Then another. Buildings that were structurally weakened by the initial 7.4 jolt may fail during smaller aftershocks. Residents in Ternate and Betung are being urged to avoid returning to damaged concrete structures until a full safety audit is completed by Indonesia's National Disaster Management Agency. And that is the cruel reality of these sequences. The main quake doesn't always do the most damage. It's the aftershocks, into weakened buildings, into cracked walls, into compromised foundations. And this sequence is not quiet yet. As recently as April 8, 2026, 6 days after the main quake, aftershocks were still being recorded near the epicenter in the Maluku Sea. 6 days later, still shaking. And this is the part that I really need you to understand. When a zone this complex, this compressed, this uniquely stressed starts releasing, it doesn't stop cleanly. It pulses. And each pulse tells us the system is still adjusting, still recalibrating. So here's the question. Was this the main event, or is the M7.4 a foreshock? I have to be honest with you guys. Nobody can tell you that with certainty. Not USGS, not BMKG, not any seismologist on Earth. But here's what I can tell you. The Molucca Sea collision zone has previously produced magnitude 7.7 earthquakes. The system is capable of going bigger. It has gone bigger. And the physics of double subduction means the stress never fully resolves. It redistributes. There is something else that concerns me. This earthquake was not a traditional plate interface event. The Halmahera slab is fully subducted and has no surface expression. No surface expression. That means there is no fault line you can see, no ridge you can identify. The thing that is causing this entire sequence of earthquakes is invisible at the surface. It is buried deep, unknown geometry, unknown total stress, and that is what keeps scientists watching this zone so carefully. The fault rupture of the April 2026 event covered an area approximately 70 kilometers by 35 kilometers. That's about 43 by 22 miles in length and width. That's a rupture zone roughly the size of a mid-sized country, releasing energy across a patch of seafloor larger than many cities. And the Sunda and Philippine sea plates are still converging at 100 millimeters per year. That convergence didn't stop after April 2nd. It continues. Right now, as we speak. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center initially issued warnings for hazardous waves within 1,000 kilometers of the epicenter, potentially affecting Indonesia, the Philippines, Malaysia, Taiwan, and Papua New Guinea. Think about those countries. Millions and millions of people within that warning radius. The infrastructure, the coastlines, the villages along those shores. Now think about what happens if the system releases a magnitude 7.7 again, or larger. A larger event on this fault system. Same shallow depth, same reverse faulting mechanism. The tsunami would not be 75 centimeters. We are talking about an entirely different scenario. I don't want to create fear without purpose. That's not what I'm about. But I want you to understand exactly what kind of system this is. Because most people look at Indonesia and think, oh, another earthquake, that's just Indonesia, right? No, this is not just another earthquake. This is the most geologically unusual compression zone on the planet, crushing a buried slab from two sides simultaneously. And it just produced its strongest event in 6 years. So what should authorities and seismologists be watching now? First, the aftershock sequence. 921 is a number that tells you the system is far from settled. Watch for any aftershock exceeding magnitude 6.5. That changes the conversation significantly. Second, tsunami monitoring. The tsunami warning was lifted approximately 2 hours after the main quake, but in regions with buried reverse faults and seafloor uplift mechanisms, monitoring cannot stop when the warning is lifted. The seafloor has been disturbed. That is a fact. And another strong aftershock on a thrust mechanism could generate a secondary pulse. Third, the structural safety audit across the Batang Dua Islands, Ternate, Bitung, and Manado. Over 450 structures were damaged or destroyed. Those weakened structures are a real and ongoing danger. The earthquake may have finished, but the buildings haven't finished failing. And fourth, the big picture. These zones don't randomly activate. When a zone like the Molucca Sea collision zone, the only zone of its kind on Earth, starts producing this kind of seismic sequence, you watch it. You watch it closely. Not with panic, with awareness. There is a difference. Panic doesn't help anyone. Awareness might just save your life. So guys, I hope you found this interesting. There are more videos about this region and about the Pacific Ring of Fire right here in the end screen. Check out the one about the Tonga earthquake swarm and the Kamchatka megathrust earthquake. Same system, different location, same restless planet. If you want to support the channel, there's a link to buy me a coffee in the description. I don't want to do a brand thing. It just helps keep the lights on and keeps me on the pulse for you. Thank you guys so much. Stay safe, be aware. Bye-bye.